From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Well, happy Tuesday, everyone. May 17th, 2022. We've got an exciting show for you today. Make sure to go to cyberhubpodcast.com, subscribe, follow us there. Go to our YouTube channel at CyberHub Podcast. Make sure you give us a subscribe. Tune in and watch all of our great videos, including last year's CISO talks. Some great conversations that a lot of people have been writing recently saying, man, stuff you guys were talking about last year is really happening this year. Yeah, some of it is really smart people on the show, so go and check those out as well. CISO Talk News will be coming back very, very soon. We'll be launching the 4th of July weekend with a very, very cool new season for the rest of the year. So don't stay tuned for that. So let's get into today's show. But before we do that, who doesn't enjoy a delicious, amazing, highly caffeinated beverage every single day? I know I do. My double espresso, I think that's black wine. Espresso is good shit. So, coffee cup cheers. Let's get into what's going on in the world of security. Apple is finally patching exploited vulnerabilities in the macOS Sysrv and Catalina. On Monday, security patches and updates were rolled out to patch tens of vulnerabilities across its OS. And it has finally released macOS Sysrv and Catalina patches for two exploited vulnerabilities tracked in CP 2022-22675 and 22674 were disclosed in late March. However, at this time, they were only patched in iOS, iPadOS, and macOS Monterey, leaving Sysrv and Catalina users still vulnerable to these specific vulnerabilities. With the release of the Sysrv 11.6.6 and the WatchOS 8.6, tvOS 15.5 are the latest softwares there. There's still many more vulnerabilities. There's still several vulnerabilities. Tens of others of vulnerabilities were also reserved in the latest Sysrv and Catalina update on Monday. So make sure you get your Mac OSs patched up. CISA's warning admins to patch actively exploited VMware and Zyxel bugs. The CISA added two more vulnerabilities to its list of actively exploited bugs, meaning they're now on the must-patch list. A code injection bug in the Spring Cloud Gateway Library and a command injection flaw in Zyxel firmware for business firewalls and VPN devices. The Spring Framework vulnerability CB 2022-22947 is a maximum severity weakness that attackers can abuse to gain remote code execution on unpatched hosts. Critical bug is currently being exploited by a botnet known as Sysrv. And we'll talk about that here in just a slew of information about what's going on there. So the new directive gives 3 weeks for federal agencies to patch these vulnerabilities. Oh, Google Play Store. So the Facestealer malware remains a quiet scourge in the Google Play Store. Malware designed to steal on Android devices user Facebook credentials continues to pop up on the Google Play Store. And you go, why Facebook? Well, here's something that's actually very interesting. You know how they always do these password studies, and I know a lot of us security practitioners are always like looking at what password people use. Well, single sign-on is really, really popular among kids between the ages of like 14 to 28. Extremely popular to the point where they use their Gmail or Facebook to essentially single sign on in almost everything else. If it has that option, they'll use it. So stealing someone's Facebook credentials is now big bugs for a lot of threat actors because it gives them the ability to cross the lateral and try those credentials across everywhere else. Some of the apps, which are very, very trustworthy, still have this in the back end, and it's stealing this information. Part of it is because it's really bad. Just developers that are putting out apps without really checking the security of the app, they're just putting it out. Part of that is Google's fault for allowing these apps to exist within their Play Store to begin with. For us as practitioners, this is a significant risk, and that's why using an MDM solution on Android devices for company information is so critical. And building these containers and managing these devices effectively is so important, as well as working on awareness, as well as talking to people about what apps are downloading. But the human nature is to download apps on your phone. It's very hard to turn the human behavior to be suspicious of everything. Otherwise, everyone will be a security professional. So just kind of something to keep in mind here, folks. Definitely. Facestealer was found by Trend Micro among many apps there. So make sure you're not using those as well. The Sysrv Botnet has added a recent Spring Cloud Gateway vulnerability to its exploit portfolio working with Microsoft. And so the Sysrv was previously seen targeting web apps and databases, including Mongo, Jira, Confluence, Drupal, Think PHP, Salt API, Apache Struts, Mongo Express, and Oracle Web Logic, among many others. The botnet scans the internet to identify multiple web services that can compromise, although patches exist for all of these targeted vulnerabilities. The victims have yet to patch. That's why a quick patch cycle is so important. Working across the org, get these patch cycles in place so that you can address these right away. So critical at this point period, simply because of how fast threat actors move once they see vulnerability. Targeted vulnerabilities include file download and file disclosure, passage reversal, and execution flaws. CP 2022-229-47 is a critical vulnerability in the Spring Cloud Gateway. Spring, for those who don't know, is essentially the new Java. It's a Java framework called Spring, and that's where we're seeing everything down from. So make sure you get that addressed and make sure you follow those IOCs. And finally, you know how I said yesterday, same for months, cybersecurity is changed forever. Well, now with the ransomware gang that's been holding the Costa Rican government hostage until they get paid is threatening to overthrow the government. Perhaps seizing on the fact that President Rodrigo Chavez has been only in office for a week, the Conti gang has tried to increase pressure to pay the ransom by raising its demand to $20 million. Chavez suggested by the news conference the attack was coming from inside as well as outside of Costa Rica. Could this be one of the first times we see cyber attacks used to overthrow a government? Wouldn't surprise me, but it changes the game. According to a lot of experts that have been looking at this, the impact is broader than previously known. 27 government institutions, including municipalities and state-run utilities, have been affected. Obviously, there's the whole blame game going around. We're not going to get into that. Conti attacked Costa Rica and April, accessing multiple critical systems in the finance industry, including customs and tax collections, and other government systems were also affected. And nothing is really functioning as of yet. Chavez declared emergency devastated for about $10 million, leading to the identification and location of the Conti gang. Costa Rica is being held hostage, and the ransomware gang is saying, hey, we'll overthrow the government if you try anything else. Crazy what's happening there. Just shows you the power of cyber and why the game's changed and why we ought to keep the conversation focused on the business drivers aspect of it. While the geopolitical stuff is very sexy, it's very interesting, it makes for a great clubhouse conversation. It's not the boardroom discussion you want to be having. It takes away from the viability of the business drivers of security, and that's really critical at this point in time. Folks, that's it for our show today. We'll be back with a lot more tomorrow. Until then, have a great rest of your day. Most importantly, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.